Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Who's on First show here on YouTube. Yesterday, I talked about the top 10 third basemen in baseball. Today, as I preluded to yesterday, I'm going to talk about the top 10 shortstops today. Like I said before, the MLB Network has done their top 10, but like I said, I haven't looked at it, or I haven't watched it, or looked at any other rankings. So let's get started with this top 10. At number 10, to a lot of people's surprise, personally to me, I actually thought this guy was not that good. But when I look at his stats and his body of work, he actually is a top shortstop. And that is San Francisco Giants shortstop, Brandon Crawford. This guy doesn't wow you in any way on the baseball field. His average was 246, which I know a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, well, you can't put him in the top 10. But at the same time, you couldn't ignore his body of work. I mean, solid shortstop glove-wise, 10 home runs, 69 RBIs, and that San Francisco lineup, that's pretty good. His strikeout ratio is not that good, I will admit that. But when you look at a guy like Brandon Crawford, I mean, I'm looking just stat-wise before I even, go into anything else. His on-base and his slugging percentage is higher than a lot of other shortstops. So to me, that puts him in the top 10. Now, don't jump down my throat here and say like, oh, he doesn't deserve to be in it. He's number 10, all right? He barely made the list. So if you want to get into that situation, comment below and we can have a discussion and we can figure it out from there. Moving on to number 9, and the beginning of shockers continue. And this guy making his debut on, I believe, on anybody's top 10. I'll watch the MLB one after I upload this one, but I'm going to go Pittsburgh Pirates shortstop Jordy Mercer. Now, Jordy Mercer jumped on the scene this year. I personally had no idea who he was at the beginning of the year, which is odd for me because I really follow baseball to an extent. But like I said with Crawford, his stats don't jump out at you, but as a solid contributor to the Pirates, I mean, 12 home runs, 55 RBIs, and a 255 average. Shortstop now is a very tough spot in the lineup, or even anyone in a lineup or in the field to be top tier. Now, a lot of people are going to say that Jordy Mercer is not as good as others. I personally can't disagree, and I can't agree on that because I'm looking at 2015, okay? 2015, Jordy Mercer most likely will have a better year. He played 149 games, and I'm expecting his production to go up. I mean, that's just the way I see it. I don't see him getting worse. I mean, that would be weird. But his on base, like I said with Crawford, his on base is actually on the low side of this list, but his on base percent, his OPS and slugging is what stands out to me. Moving on to number 8, and that would be, all right. Number 8 to me, I have a tie, and I know I had 10 and 9, but I felt like these two guys needed to be together because of the type of players that they are, and that is J.J. Hardy and Andrelton Simmons. Andrelton Simmons and J.J. Hardy are both great gloves. No doubt about it. Andrelton Simmons is probably the best defensive shortstop in baseball. And I think people kind of overrate that a little bit. I'm not going to be that person, but he had 244 last year. I'm sorry. But nobody on my list, besides Brandon Crawford, who barely made the list. And that's only because of his power and RBI ratio, which Simmons did not have, made the list at that point. But Simmons and Hardy are the same because Hardy had an awful offensive year. He hit 9 home runs for a guy that usually averages about 20. And I look at both those guys, and I think that they're both the type of players that can both increase next year and hopefully move up. I personally had a very hard time putting a tie in my top 10, especially where it wasn't 10. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but you know what? This is my thing. It's my show. I can do whatever the hell I want. Moving on to number 7 on the list, and I think a lot of people have this guy higher, but I'm going to say him now, and that would be Johnny Peralta of the St. Louis Cardinals. Johnny Peralta, he obviously had the PED scandal a few years ago, and then he signed with St. Louis. he's still producing even without the gas. I mean, good for him. 21 homers, 75 RBIs, and a 263 average. That's, that's one of the top power shortstops in the game, and he's still solid defensively. I mean, he's not a liability, but he's not a Gold Glove either. I mean, don't get me wrong, but he's out there every day, pretty much. Maybe 1 or 2 games here and there, and you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get 15 to 20 bombs, 70 to 75 RBIs. I mean, that's a good body's work, if I must say so myself, for a shortstop. Johnny Peralta is the type of guy where he is aging, so I'm expecting his production to go down a little bit. I mean, that lineup is pretty loaded, but that's just the way I see it. His slugging percentage is the second best on my list, so opposed to the other guys on the list. But he's one of the best power guys at shortstop. You cannot dispute that. So that's the way I look at it. Moving on to number 6, a guy who is a huge subject of trade talks this winter, and that is shortstop for the Chicago White Sox, Alexei Ramirez. Now, I know a lot of people may not rank him this high, and I don't know. I feel like Alexei is the definition of durability and production every year. I mean, Alexei, I don't think I've ever seen him get hurt in any way since I've seen him come into the league. And his production is always the same. 10 to 20 bombs, 60 to 70 RBIs. He'll hit 260, 280-ish. And you know what you're getting every single year. Personally, I think this guy should be more of an all-star more times than he has been, but that's just me. I actually wanted to put him higher on the list, but more analyzing of things, I had to put him at 6, which makes me very frustrated because he's one of my favorite shortstops in the game. But of course, I don't want to be completely biased in any way, shape, or form. Moving on to number 5. This one is going to surprise a lot of people and maybe upset a lot of people, but I just don't care. So I'm putting Starlin Castro of the Chicago Cubs at number 5. Castro, he didn't have an amazing year, and he only played 134 games. But in those 134 games, he hit 292, 14 homers, and 65 RBIs. I will take that from a shortstop. Because if I figure, yes, the 2013, he had an awful year. No doubt about it. He had something, I don't know. His swing was off. He just didn't look comfortable at the plate. I don't know. He figured it out. In 2014, he came back a different player. He finally was connecting again. He was driving the ball out of the ballpark. And he became a focal point in that lineup. To me, next year, if he builds, he's building and building. Him and Rizzo are going to be the cornerstones of this Cubs lineup. And I don't see Castro ever hitting 30 bombs. That's not the type of player he is. But in 160 games a year, I could see 25, which would put him at a top tier of power for shortstop. 25 bombs, maybe 70, 80, 90 RBIs, give or take, and around 300 average. That's one of the best shortstops in the game, and you can't dispute that. I'm sorry, you just can't. Moving on to number 4. This was the pick, I think, that even I was surprised would be this high. And I know my buddy Anthony was also surprised about this. Can't believe I'm actually saying this person at number 4, but I'm saying Kansas City's shortstop, Alcides Escobar. Alcides Escobar does not look, his stats don't jump at you. They don't. 3 homers, 50 RBIs, 31 stolen bases, 285. He had second best average on this list, or third best average, excuse me. Third best average. His home run, he's not a home run guy, but he's a put the ball in play type of guy, and I like that in a shortstop. He's also a great glove. I love that he steals 30 bags a year. That, to me, has a lot of value. I love getting the extra base. But for a guy, he's not your prototypical shortstop, and I like that. I like that he's different. I like that he's not the same guy as, a Tulo or other guys like that. And his 285 average is very productive. And another guy who does not miss games. He's played 162, I'm pretty sure, back-to-back years for the Kansas City Royals. So Alcides Escobar is one of those guys where it's like, you don't really want to look at him, but you look at him and you're like, wow, this guy, is a solid shortstop, and he plays every single day, So to me, he's the number 4 shortstop in the game. I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for that, but I just don't care. Number 3. on my list. And many people have the top three, in the same situation. I don't know. But number three for me is Toronto Blue Jays shortstop Jose Reyes. Jose Reyes, since he's gone to Toronto, many people kind of forget about Jose Reyes. To me, he's still the same guy that he was in New York, just he's not in New York anymore. 9 homers, 51 RBIs, 30 stolen bases, a 287 average. That's what he is. People who think that he is, a 20 home run guy, he's not that. He's a speed demon in the middle of the infield. Let's be honest. He's going to get on base. He's not going to hit many homers. He's going to maybe hit maybe 10 to 12 triples. He's a double machine, I believe. So, he's the type of guy that you look at and you're like, okay, this guy is, his full body of work. He helps the Blue Jays win games. He takes extra bases like Escobar does, and he's very good in the field. So barring any injury, Jose Reyes is one of the top shortstops in the game. When he was the first couple years of the Blue Jays, we didn't really see the real Jose Reyes. Even under this, he only played 143 games, but for Reyes, 143 games, I'll take that. Most years he's barely playing 120, 100. So, if Reyes can stay healthy, he will earn his spot in my top 3 next year. But next year we could see a completely different shuffle. I hope not. I really like Jose Reyes, and I kind of hope Toronto does pull off some great things, even though I'm a Red Sox fan. I'd love to see them, challenge for the division for once. That would be cool. They're the only team I've never seen in the playoffs. I've never seen them. It's the only team since I've been born. So it's something I really want to see. So I'm hoping Jose Reyes can be the focal point in that offense. Moving on to number 2. 1 and 2 were the hardest for me to pick because I had to look at both guys and say, well, this one guy only played 91 games, and then the other guy played 151 games. One guy had 21 homers. The other guy had 24 with a full body of work. But I had to go with a guy who I think finally broke out, and I have to give him his due here, but I had a very hard time not putting him number 1, and that was Desmond of the Washington Nationals. Hitting 255, not good. He's going to strike out a lot. He actually leads the list in strikeouts. But 24 homers, 91 RBIs, 24 stolen bases, and a pretty close to Gold Glove shortstop. That's one of the best in the game. He's a vocal point in that Nationals offense. He is, I think, the person that makes that offense work. Like I was saying with Rendon yesterday, him and Rendon together is unbelievable. Plus, you have Zimmerman, Worth, Harper. That team is unbelievable. And for Desmond to put on a show like that last year, I really hope that he can take on number 1 next year. But having said that, I hope at the same time the number 1 guy can bounce back and actually play a full year and actually can get the recognition of being the best shortstop in the game, because if the guy that I put at number 1 does not play 100 games next year and Desmond does, and Desmond has the same stat line like this, I will put him at number 1 because it's back-to-back years now. This is the only reason I didn't put him at number 1. Was 1, the 255 average. 2, it's the first real year that we've seen Desmond explode. And I'm the type of person that doesn't like putting a lot of emphasis on the breakout years. So I like to see a couple years of it before I put you at number 1. That's just my rule. I don't know how other people feel about it, but that's how I do. So moving on to number 1. You all know who it is, Troy Tulowitzki of the Colorado Rockies. He played only 91 games again. This is getting kind of the point where it's every year I'm going to miss this amount of games, this amount of games, this amount of games, this amount of games. I just want to see Troy Tulowitzki play 1 full year. I want to see what his stats really are, because he hit 21 homers, 52 RBIs, and hit 340 last year in 91 games. He was on his way for an MVP season. If him and Cargo could just play maybe 140, that team would be a playoff team every year. But Tulo is the type of player that for some reason he's not going to play the full year, and that's just how it is. There's nothing we can do about it. He had the highest OPS on the list, and obviously the highest slugging because he's in Colorado, but you can all do whatever you want with that. But this is my top 10 for shortstop. Tulo is the top guy for that list. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but, that's, and staying on taking the safe way out. I'm trying not to. I really wanted to put Desmond higher, but I just couldn't. But tomorrow I will be doing the second baseman top 10 list of what I've come up with. I hope you enjoyed the third baseman one yesterday and the shortstop one today. And hopefully you comment below with what you think your top 10 is. I'd love to hear from you guys. And make sure you like and subscribe, and I will be seeing you tomorrow.